Hey everyone, welcome back and let's write some more NeetCode today. So today let's solve the problem evaluate reverse Polish notation. Quite a mouthful, but basically this problem is about what the meaning of that term even means, and it's just kind of a way to compute arithmetic expressions, and the only operations we're really going to be doing in this case are going to be the simple ones: add, subtract, multiply, and divide. One note that they tell us, though, is division between two integers should basically round towards zero. Since I'm going to be doing this in Python, though, if you take some values and do integer division between them, they always round down, which is not rounding towards zero necessarily, because imagine if we had -3 divided by 2, that's -1.5. It rounds down to -2 in Python, but that's not what we want to do. But there's a trick in Python that you can do to make it round towards zero, so we can take care of that. If you're using Java, though, I think it automatically rounds towards zero, same with like C++ in most languages. One thing we're told, though, in terms of the RPN expression, is that it's always going to be valid, which is good, so we don't really have to worry about too many edge cases. There's never going to be some divide by zero or anything crazy like that. So now, what does RPN even mean? Well, let's take a look at this example. So we're given a 2, a 1, then a plus operator, then a 3, and then a multiply operator. Now, the way this is going to work is we're going to be reading from left to right. We're going to be reading the inputs. So first one was a 2. Next one is a 1. When we reach an operator, though, what exactly are we supposed to do? Well, any operator in this case is going to be applied to the previous two values. And like I said, there's not going to be edge cases, so we're guaranteed that there are going to be two previous values. So in this case, what we would do is replace this 2 and this 1 by adding them together. So it's going to be replaced with a 3, right? So we can kind of forget these, and we already used this plus operator, so we can kind of cross it out as well. Now we have a 3 again, so I'm going to be kind of writing it down here just to kind of, basically say that we've seen that 3 before. Now we have the multiply operator. It's going to be applied to the two previous values. Now, in the actual input itself, you can see that the previous value was a 3, and the value before that was a plus operator. When we say it's going to be applied to the two previous values, that's not what we mean. We don't want to apply it to another operator, right? We mean the two previous values that came. So you can see that we had a 3, and then the one before that was a 1. But remember, this 2 and this 1, they were replaced by this 3. And then we had a second 3, which we wrote down here. So this multiply is going to be applied to these two values, so we can multiply both of them and then replace them with the result, which in this case is going to be a 9. So you can see that that is our result, and you can see that it is correct. If you know the data structure, or you're familiar with the data structure, a stack, and you've used that in other problems before, I think this problem is pretty simple to figure out that a stack will be useful here, because basically each operator is going to be applied to the previous values, right? But in the case of this 2, the previous values are going to be removed from the stack, right? And then replaced with the new value, which is a 3. So, as we read through the input, each value here is going to be added to the stack. Anytime we reach an operator, the previous two values are going to be removed from the stack, and then we're going to do the operation on them. So in this case, 2 plus 1, and then we're going to take the result of that, which is 3, and then push it back onto the stack. And that's kind of what I was getting at when I was doing the drawing explanation. So really quickly,
So you want to be a software engineer at Google? Go to
let's actually run through an example with a stack. And just to make this problem a bit more interesting, let's replace this plus operator with actually a subtract, and this multiply with a divide, because it's going to be a little bit different with these two operations, because with plus, these two are going to be added, right? 2 plus 1. But when you have subtract, which order are they going to be subtracted? Well, the intuitive one would be 2 minus 1, because that's the order that they appear in. But 1 minus 2 could be possible, right? Well, in this case, if you looked at the second example, I think they clarify that, yes, it's going to be this way, right? 2 minus 1. Let's run through this with a stack very quickly. So we read the first value, it's a 2. We add it to our stack. Second value is a 1. We add it to our stack. Next, we get the subtract operator. What does that mean? That means we pop these values from our stack and then do the operation. So in this case, it was 2 minus 1. That's going to be a 1 over here. Next value is a 3. We add it to the stack. Next, we have a divide operator. So in this case, it's going to be the same order that the values appear in. So 1 divided by 3, we're going to round towards 0. So in this case, it's actually going to be 0, right? So we pop this, and then replace it with a 0. And we're guaranteed, since this is always going to be valid, that we're only going to be left with a single value in our stack. So that's the value we're going to return. So in this case, the answer is 0. So that's pretty much the entire solution. Now we can code it up, but I just want to mention that the overall time complexity is going to be big O of n, because we're just reading through the input string, adding each value to the stack, and removing it at most once each. So, the time complexity is 2 times n. In other words, it's big O of n. The memory complexity, since we do have the stack, is also going to be big O of n. So now let's code it up. Let's code it up. Like I said, we're going to need a single data structure in this problem, which is going to be our stack. In Python, you can just use a list. And then most of this problem is just going to be boilerplate. Once you realize that a stack works for this problem, then it's just about coding it up. So what we're going to do is just iterate through every character in our tokens input, and then just have a bunch of conditional statements. The first one is if the character, there's 5 cases, remember. It could be one of the 4 operators, or it could be any other character. And any other character basically means that it's a digit or some number, right? So let's basically make those conditions. So first is that it's plus, and let me just kind of, copy and paste this stuff and then get it updated. So the cases are plus, minus, multiply, and divide. And then the last 5th case is where it's something else. And if it's something else, that means it's a number. And that's the simplest case of all, because that means we can just take that character and then append it to our stack. But it's a character, remember? But we should probably convert it into a number before we actually add it to our stack, because remember, what we want to return is a number, not a character. Okay, so now let's start with the plus condition. Well, remember what I said? We can just pop from our stack twice and then add those values together and then append that to the stack. So for this, it's actually pretty simple as well. We pop from the stack twice, take the return values, add them together, and then append that to the stack so that the result is added to the stack. Pretty simple. And for multiply, that's also going to be almost the exact same thing, right? Instead of plus, we're going to be doing multiplication. So let's, just copy paste and then update that as well. It's going to be a little bit more tricky though for subtract and divide, because the order that we're popping it in is not the order that we want to apply that subtract and divide operation. We want to get those 2 values that were popped. Well, again, we are going to pop twice because we want to get those 2 values that were popped. So let's do that. This is, let's call them just A and B arbitrarily. You could call them anything that you want. But when we subtract them, we want to take the one that was popped second and subtract it from the one that was popped first. So B minus A, and then take that and then append it to our stack. So this, though, is going to be very similar to what we do in our divide operation down here. We're going to pop 2 values, and then in that same order, B and then A, we're going to divide them rather than subtract them. But in Python, when you do this, this is actually decimal division, but we want to round it towards 0. So to do that, we can actually just call the int function, which will convert it to an integer and also round it towards 0 at the same time. So that's pretty much the entire code. You can see it's mostly just a bunch of boilerplate, but once all that's done, let's go ahead and return the single value that is guaranteed to be in the stack at index 0, and then make sure that our code works by running it And as you can see on the left, yes, it does, and it's very efficient. So I stack at index 0, and then make sure that our code works by running it. And as you can see on the left, yes, it does, and it's very efficient. So I really hope that this was helpful. If it was, please like and subscribe. It really supports the channel a lot. Consider checking
Yan fino. Ano ba ba yan?